There's a sort of miracle of citizenship, but for the longest time we thought people in the West had won and people in emerging countries had lost. There was a deep difference, but now we're seeing people in the West with fewer freedoms, fewer options, feeling less certain about their country's futures. And I want to tell you why it's so important to choose your citizenship rather than letting it choose you. The miracle of citizenship has benefited people in the West, and I believe that's changing. And I believe that people all over the world, especially successful people, need to have options because for most of us, we didn't choose our citizenship. I was reading a story recently about a village at the border of India and Myanmar. It's the Longwa Village, where purportedly folks are dual citizens of both India and Myanmar, two countries which have lower quality, what we call T or C passports, not a lot of travel privileges, and yet they say these people can move freely between both countries. That may be true even if you're not a dual citizen of some of these more tribal areas and remote parts of emerging countries. But the idea is that one of these people's homes is literally cut in half by the border of these two countries. Where is it that these people are from? What is their identity? And how do people simply have rights and privileges or have not rights and privileges simply because of the piece of land that they're born on? I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and you can see how big the world is and just how small on it Cleveland, Ohio is. Everywhere we're from is small. And by being born in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States, I received American citizenship, not even because my parents were also born in the United States, but because I was born in the United States. And yet, just 54 miles separated where I was born and being a U.S. citizen from being a Canadian citizen. The difference may not seem that much at first. However, the ability to get jobs in the United States is, for many people, stronger than it would be in Canada. Many folks come from Canada to get jobs in the United States in the tech sector, for example, and yet for those like me who didn't want to live there, leaving the United States comes with far more bureaucratic burdens than would leaving Canada. Being a U.S. citizen comes with a lifetime of reporting and taxes and filing and regulations, and being a citizen of Canada immediately means no longer being a resident. Just 54 miles separates that, and in the next month, I will fly over 12,000 miles in a period of 72 hours. 54 miles is absolutely nothing. And in the same way that the Longwa Village residents really can't say, am I Burmese? Am I Indian? Their village is right in the middle. What is our identity? And to me, it shows just how odd the concept of citizenship is. We're born in a place, our parents are born in a place, we claim that as our identity, and yet we neglect our identity, in a sense, as human beings. This citizenship will determine where we can travel, how we're treated when we go there, how we'll be educated, how we'll be taxed, what opportunities we'll be able to take advantage of. There's no doubt that while the U.S. and Canada are somewhat similar, there are people born on the U.S.-Mexico border. Some will have better opportunities than others. Some will be more taxed. Some will be able to travel to more places. And yet, even as the U.S. and Canada are somewhat similar, would most people rather travel as a U.S. citizen to many parts of the world or travel as a Canadian? There is certainly a reputation that comes with being the United States and being, for many years, the world's policeman and being involved in many geopolitical issues that a Canadian, for example, just wouldn't have. And that 54 miles can make a difference in which passport you carry when you travel. It can make a difference in the quality of education. It can make a difference in the rights that you have as a man, as a woman, as a child, as someone to go to school, and again, how much that you will tax. And so how much control does a passport have over our life? It dictates where we can live. If you live in Canada because you were born 54 miles north of where I was, you will be living in a place where it is cold for a lot longer than it would be in places in the U.S. And so you may want to relocate because you don't like the weather. You may want to relocate because you don't believe you can start a business as well there, or because there aren't as many opportunities, or the population isn't as great. Even though you can now start businesses that reach the entire world, many people start businesses that reach local audiences, and the local audience in a place like the United States is bigger. And yet, many people also feel that living in the United States, they are subject to constant mass shootings. They don't agree with the policies of the country, whether on the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle. That's where they live, and they are a citizen of that one country. And even though You can move to different parts of that country. You are still stuck in that country. Your passport determines where you can live until you decide to get a residence permit or a citizenship somewhere else. Your passport determines how easily you can get a job. Certainly it is easier to get a good paying job in the United States, in Canada, even in Mexico than it would be in Myanmar or many parts of India. But it also limits your opportunities in terms of where you can invest, where you can put that money, how that money is treated, what the restrictions are. Your citizenship determines who you can marry, how much taxes you pay, where your kids can grow up, how they're educated, under what conditions they're educated. People now increasingly in the United States are saying, I don't like what the school system is teaching my kids. Again, some are on the left, some are on the right. You are in that system, and your government, whether it's at the federal level or where you live, can set mandates of how you're educated, how your kids are educated. You're dictated where you can travel, where you can go, again, how you're received, where you can retire, what happens to your money when you retire. Do you get to keep that money when you retire? What happens to the money you keep in the bank account? Are you going to trust all those things to just one government? And it's easy to think that because you are not living in a remote village in the borders of Southeast and South Asia, that somehow you're at an advantage. But the world is becoming increasingly open. It's becoming increasingly competitive. People from countries where you thought their passports weren't that good are now becoming better. Opportunities are developing where countries are lowering taxes and being more competitive and encouraging their entrepreneurs in a way that Western countries, which you thought won the citizenship lottery, are not. Countries like Mexico are up and coming, and they've actually got a pretty good passport, really not that much worse in many ways than a passport from the United States. And so the distinction between being born on one side of that U.S. southern border and the other is becoming less and less. No doubt if you want a job, you'd still rather be born on that southern border in the U.S. because then you can move to California, you can move to New York. But as Mexico comes up, more opportunities are being developed there. And so the gap between these is not about India and Myanmar. It's about Mexico and the United States. It's about Eastern Europe and Western Europe. And these are becoming increasingly close. Your opportunity to make sure that no one country controls all of those things that you get to do in your life comes down to, will you allow one country to brand you? Or will you say, there is now a tremendous opportunity that did not exist to the same extent 50 years ago, where not only can I get citizenship in a matter of months from countries in the Caribbean that respect my investment and use that to improve their country and will give me a good passport in return, but also I have the opportunity to go and make sure that my family for generations to come has multiple options, that if jobs in one place are scarce, if starting a business in one place is difficult, if geopolitical issues in one country become scary, if conditions become unsafe, we have another place to go. The miracle of citizenship to me is the miracle that we identify ourselves based on a place on the map that we were born, that we hold back certain people that have incredible talents from creating businesses and helping grow new projects, helping to drive innovation simply because they have the wrong passport. And I imagine how much more advanced the world could be if people from countries like India had more opportunities to go to places. And yet, on the other hand, people from the country where you are in the West, may be having more opportunities than, quite frankly, they would have in a normal free market system merely because of the miracle of birth. But if you're on the side of innovation, if you're on the side of success, if you're on the side of driving wealth and creating businesses and adding value, then this is a time when you want to take advantage of the fact that, yes, you're probably not going to go to India, you're not going to go to Myanmar, but you could get residence in Mexico. You could get residence in any number of Latin American countries that will welcome you just because you have some money coming in every month and you can live there, or sometimes even not, and work towards second citizenship. You can have the option. You can take call options on countries around the world that they may develop their economies more freely. You may take call options on countries around the world that their tax policy will be better for someone like you in the future because Western countries are increasingly becoming bankrupt, and we've seen how they've treated their citizens in the last couple of years. You don't want to have only one passport and rely on the old-fashioned miracle of citizenship and think that your one country is going to take care of you. Because people who rely on jobs are seeing that the wages they're earning from those jobs in Western countries in many cases aren't keeping up, while people in other countries are making more and more. Western citizens are seeing they're subject to more restrictions, more regulations, more taxes could be coming, even taxes if you leave the country. That's the miracle of citizenship and what bigger countries may be able to impose on you. And so having citizenship in a smaller country may be beneficial, but never forget that the difference between your opportunities came down to where you were born and the identity that you have. and realize at the same time that people all around the world who have different identities are creating great fortunes in more vibrant climates than where you may live, and that your ability to have residence and citizenship in those other countries will allow you to expand the miracle of citizenship to make sure that no matter where the world goes in this great era of transformation, you will continue to enjoy that miracle.